Hello, everyone. I'm Patricia Butler, the CEO and co-founder of Artist Works. Welcome back to our live dispatch from home show. I guess that's what we could call it. We're really happy to be in your home today, bringing just a little bit of music and musical conversation. We like to refer to this time as a bit of a musical oasis. And today I'm very pleased to have two of our teaching artists from Artist Works with us. So we are going to be hearing from and talking with Howard Levy on harmonica and also some tremendous jazz piano, along with George Whitty, obviously, on some awesome jazz piano. So these two guys teach at Artist Works along with 35 other world-renowned musicians who have recorded pretty much everything they know at Artist Works, and we did not have to drag them to Napa County. And that means that you can learn pretty much anything you would like with them. You can learn from their lessons, and you can also send them a video, and they will respond to you with a video of some direction and guidance on how to practice and what you did well and what you need to do going forward. So that's what kind of makes learning at Artist Works a bit unique. And we work with these wonderful musicians. We're very pleased to have two of them with us this evening. I welcome all of you, especially those who are joining us for the first time, and of course those familiar names and faces as well. Please feel free to ask questions. Tell us where you're from in the comments. We're happy to know where you are listening to us from and hear your questions as well. So we like to start these events with a little bit of a musical tribute to the people that are on the front lines of these pandemics, people that have suffered loss or have been ill recently and just maybe going through a tough time. That's what we're here for. Bring some great music into your life. And so today, George and Howard are going to play People Get Ready, and we're going to start off with Howard Levy. That was great. Yay! Thank you. That was just beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your music with us today. And this, of course, is George Whitty at the bottom of the screen and Howard Levy in the upper right-hand corner, as their little nameplates will indicate. I'm glad that you guys both are with us. You know what I wasn't sure is if you had ever collaborated together before. Have you ever recorded or performed together before?
No, we've never met. And
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize
when
that.
I saw that George was the piano teacher here, I thought, wow, that's an incredible choice. And I've admired your work for years. And that's why as soon as you offered me, Patricia, a chance to do this with somebody, I immediately went,
I know.
I want to meet this guy. I want to play with him. As weird as the online thing is, that was my first wish.
I didn't know why you were so anxious to do it with George, because I knew he was buying a house, and I mean, I of course you would be anxious to do it with him. Let me backpedal a minute. It's just I knew George was buying a house and moving, and I thought maybe you were anxious to collaborate with him on this because you had worked together before. So I'm so happy that you're together for the first time. That's wonderful. George, it's great to have you here.
It's great to be here, and of course, like everybody, I've been a huge fan of Howard's since the first iteration of Bela Fleck and the Fleck tones. And I think we may know some people in common, you worked with Kenny Loggins for a while. Was that on the road, Howard?
Well, I recorded the Outside from the Redwoods DVD, CD with him, and it must have been '93. And then we toured for a year, and I'm also on his kids album called Return to Pooh Corner. And as with everything else Kenny does, everything is highest quality.
Yes.
And as you know, if you've worked with Kenny, he's one of the more particular people there is.
I haven't worked with him, but I've done a lot of work with Gino Vanelli.
Oh, okay.
And he's another one who's a real stickler for detail. But I guess I was wondering if you met Tom Brechtline in the course of working with.
Not with Kenny, but I've met Tom. Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. And of course, one of the things that really blew my mind that you did was working on Randy Brecker's solo album, the one that he raps on. And
oh yeah,
man, your stuff on there is just incredible. Everything you did to support what he was doing, and that's a fantastic record. What's it called?
Thanks. Those
34th and Lex, right? Isn't that what that's called?
There was that one, and then there was another one, Hanging in the City.
I don't know if I heard that one.
Yeah,
sure.
So we did two, and they were sort of a similar idea. At that time, Randy was making demos on these little bitty, Casio keyboards and whatnot in hotel rooms. That was late '90s, I guess.
Yeah.
And so he would bring those in to me, and this is like 8 bars of something, and we would build it from there. But Randy had this idea in his head of not just singing and rapping, but also this alter ego that he calls Randroid. There are those of us who would say that the alter ego is actually Randy Brecker and the Randroid is the actual person in question. But gee, those were fun. I mean, that horn section that was on there, it was Fred Wesley, David Sanborn, Randy, Mike Brecker, and on Barry.
I'm trying to remember who would be playing Barry on that. Roger Rosenberg?
What's that?
Was it Roger Rosenberg? Or?
No, it was, for some reason I'm spacing on the guy's name. But it was a hell of a horn section.
No
and,
kidding.
the sessions were fun. And like one thing that Randy does, if the track, both he and Mike have what I call a Thelonious Monk gene. If the harmony is too inside, it just doesn't work for them. It's just not interesting to them. So we would have a track going, and it would be a little too bland for Randy. So he'd say, take that clavinet track and just start transposing it around.
Oh wow!
And we would, and pretty soon we'd find something that was really weird, but it worked. And I'd look back, and Randy would be like, and that's kind of how the compositional process works.
Wow. Yeah, that is an amazing sounding recording. That's when I first really heard you, a large dose of you, and then of course I checked out some of the stuff you did with Chris Mendoki too. That was just amazing.
Yeah, thanks. Those are always, fun sessions with friends. I know you've done a lot of recording
Yeah.
where it's almost like you're just in your living room having fun, and it's really just the best way to do things. Over the years, I've gotten smarter and figured out rather than make the recording and then go out and do gigs and figure out, oh damn it, I wish we had done this that way, and re-rehearse the band and so forth. If you do some gigs first and then record, then it's a well-oiled machine and everything goes smoother, and
Yeah.
it just sounds more natural. All the kinks are worked out while you're at the gig.
Well, it's funny. That's the way the Flectons used to record. We would go out and tour and get everything together, and then we go in the studio and you sort of fine tune stuff, and you discover you need to change some stuff, but everyone's in the groove. But the last album we did, when we had the band reunion in 2010, 2011, we weren't going to tour until afterwards. Plus, with the new reality, as soon as something's out, if you play it live, there's 1,000 kids with their phones, and the stuff's on YouTube, and you're not going to sell anything.
The Grateful Dead were way ahead of their time with all that.
You're right. They just shared it and made all their money from their religious cult following, basically.
Right. Now, is the record you're talking about, is that the one that has Life in 11 on it?
Yes.
How did you guys come up with that piece? I have a bunch of questions related to that.
Good.
Specifically, it sounds to me like if it was a chart, it would be 15 pages long.
Well, that's the thing about the Flectons is I'm trying to find an A harmonica, which is what I play that on. Oh, geez, where is it? I had one here. Too many harmonicas, not enough time. Where is it?
I can't believe you can't find a harmonica. They're always in a pocket somewhere, aren't they?
It happens all the time. Here's one.
There you go. Okay.
The melody ideas for that piece was all stuff that I had been playing just myself and on solo gigs, where I go. There's a rhythmic pattern. Then. Well, that stuff, because from a not lifelong, but a many-year obsession with Bulgarian music.
Oh, okay. See, this is so great because toward the end of his life, Mike Brecker's obsession
I heard about that.
was Bulgarian music, and that's what that thing reminded me of. You guys would have just gotten such a kick out of working together.
Man, I got to know Randy pretty well, but Michael, it just never, our paths didn't cross because, I live in Chicago, and, my paths don't cross with as many people as they would if I lived on either coast. But, I really regret that. Michael was just really an inspiration.
And he got really into this band over there. You're probably familiar with them, called Farmers Market.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And, it's like they wake up in the morning and they play these things in those really weird. That piece is in 11.
Right.
Right. And I'm not the world's best with weird meters, but I can play them if there's like a kind of a regular rhythmic thing going on underneath. I played a lot of music with Richard Bona.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember doing gigs with Sadao Watanabe with Richard, and Sadao loved the tunes in 13 that Richard had. But we would start to play them, and Sadao would play like a bar and a half of a solo, and then he'd just turn around and laugh and smile. But there was like a regular rhythmic figure, and I could latch into that and kind of hear it. Life in 11, which for those who aren't familiar with it, is written in 11. It seems like you better have the 11 like really going in your head because it's not that repetitive as far as rhythmic figures that you can anchor yourself to.
Well, all the Bulgarian rhythms are just different groups of twos and threes. And so the Bulgarian 11 dance rhythm, which is also called Gankino or Krivo Oro, it's 2, 2, 3, 2, 2. So you feel it about three different ways at the same time. First, you have to be able to go taka, 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 ta, taka, taka. And then you have to be able to say quick, quick, slow, quick, quick. So the pulses like 5 pulses. Da, 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 da. And then you have to be able to hear the 4-3-4. Bop, ba, bop, bop, ba, bop. And then the big one. Bop, da, 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 bop, da, 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 da. And then being able to play stop times, you know. Dun, 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 dun. So you have to have this multi-level clock ticking in your head at all times with all these different subdivisions.
Now, the way that you're describing it, it almost sounds like you could help teach somebody what that is. Like,
yeah.
do you think that there's a way to sort of instruct people to help them latch into that kind of thing, or?
Oh, absolutely. Matter of fact, that's what the book that, that I have to
Okay,
finish
good.
writing.
I'm in.
It's here it is. The title is way too long. I shortened it, but it's called "Expanding Your Improvisational and Compositional Vocabulary by Combining Scales, Modes, and Rhythms." And so, the simplest way to teach, one of the problems is people are not used to these rhythms that are so fast, and you have to develop a comfort with, you know, a fast meter. So the easiest thing, if you start out, let's say in 7, 1 2 1 2 1 2 3, you just play the major scale. You can't miss.
Right.
And then you have exercises, like the silly little exercises that you learn when you're playing like any instrument, like this one, but you do them in 7. And you do that in all 12 keys, all 7 Greek modes, all 7 modes of the melodic minor scale, and et cetera, et cetera. So once you pay your dues and do all this stuff, you actually develop a vocabulary. And the same thing works with the other odd time meters. So if you're playing in 11, for example, the major scale, you just play as far as 11 notes goes, which is 11 notes. So it's 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1. You can't miss. You just
Right.
go up. You go up one more after the 11 to the 12th. So and do it on whatever instrument you're on. And so there's no need to just practice scales as mechanical exercises. You can use scales and all of these different patterns, pentatonic scales, chromatic scales, whole tone scales, all use it to your advantage to re-groove yourself in all of these different time meters. And that's the basic idea.
You know, I
Very cool.
play often with Armand Sabaleko's band. Armand was the bass player on those big Paul Simon tours. Another one of
yeah.
these brilliant musicians from Cameroon. And he writes a lot of stuff that either it's in a weird meter or it's displaced in such a funny way that, you know, you got to learn to hear it. And it's a great band. It's me and Toshi Yanagi on guitar and Joel Taylor on drums usually. But there's no charts. And so Armand sends MP3s of the tunes, and it's all that cool stuff that's so intriguing to musicians, you know, like us who haven't worked with that sort of feel before. But everybody makes their own chart, and then we get to the rehearsal, and everybody's kind of like, where do you have one on this? And I'm like, well, I have it here. And he's like, oh, really? I have it over here. And Joel's like, no, it's here. And Armand says, no, it's none of those places. It's here. And there was one tune that we did where I wrote a chart and brought it in, and I was an eighth note off of where
Lord.
Armand heard one.
Oh, geez.
And Armand said that he's just used to it, that Mike Brecker also didn't have the same one as he did, but that it kind of works out to be this interesting thing because everybody is counting it differently. I have found that I had no aptitude in odd meters until I started writing some tunes in odd meters.
Yeah.
And there's something about spending that much time in 7 or in 5. I haven't written anything in 11 yet, but where as you're figuring it out, like you're building that muscle that lets you sort of hear it from then on whenever you see it on the gig.
Very
Yeah.
cool. It's a very
Yeah.
deep subject. It's something that is always interesting to people that are listening because you just don't play an 11 all that much, especially when you're a student. But when you hear it, it pulls you right in because it's so different. It's not something that you hear on every stage or on every CD. It's very, I think it's
Unless you
very
live in
unique.
Bulgaria.
Well, unless you live in Bulgaria.
That's
This is
right, in
true.
there, or sometimes in India.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Oh,
you
yeah.
guys actually had kind of a hit with that, and my hat is off to you
Thank you.
for making it that natural and flow like that. That's the art of it.
Well, it's interesting the way we wrote that because Bela came up to my house and he hung out, and I said, I have this idea in 11. And I had shown him that rhythm years before, but he had trouble figuring out how to play it with the banjo roll, which is using three fingers. He's not using a pick, so it's more complicated to integrate multiple fingers into these rhythms. And of course, in the 30 years since then, or whatever it was, he got super comfortable with it. And then he wrote a whole bunch of other 11s, which were combinations of 5s and 7s and in various different things. And then I wrote a solo sequence that was like 11-2. God, I can't even remember. I haven't played it in so long. No, that's 7. Oh, geez. I can't remember how it goes. But anyway, I wrote a thing that where the 11 is slower, so that it's sort of like a release from all the tension of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, like that.
Yeah.
But then the funny thing is, talking about charts, yeah, Bela in the old days never used to write charts. And in the beginning, he didn't really read music. He read banjo tab. So I had to write out my own charts. Sometimes I didn't need it. If I was just playing harmonica, I could memorize stuff. But if I was playing piano, man, I had to know what chords I was
Yeah.
playing. And so I would write my own charts out. And Victor and Roy, they would never write charts. They would just memorize everything. So we had really long rehearsals. And, it wasn't what I was used to. But the funny thing is when we recorded that tune, we just worked really hard on it. I flew down there a few times and, we're in the studio ready to record it. And I said, one of us realized we don't have an ending.
Right.
And I made up the ending on the spot. I went, okay, here it is, bang,
Right.
And Vic's going, whoa, what did you do there? I said, well, it's and it has all these rhythmic stop times in it. It just hit me like in that moment, like that was the ending. I didn't think twice about it.
Yeah.
And so that's the one that's on the tune.
I have
Yeah.
a question for you,
You know.
Howard, and actually it's a good question for George too. How do you get musical relief from that constant rhythm if you're not from Bulgaria? How do you musically give the listener some relief from that? Do you just switch the time meter, or what do you do?
No, I would just say you have to, if you watch Bulgarians play, for example, they're just relaxed. They're as cool as cucumbers, man. They're not even moving. They look, they're like chewing tobacco and spitting practically. and I'm sitting there in the audience, my head spinning around like Linda Blair, and that's is gaining the inner relaxation where you're not pounding out every beat and you're grooving just like the way we groove in 4,
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, and there's a thing, I remember mentioning it in my lessons. I think that we have this sense when we sit down at our instrument that while I'm sitting at my instrument, I better play. And recovering from that idea or whatever, and just getting this thing where it's okay to just contribute something every couple bars, or play a pad, or open it up, or the reason Tom Breckline is in my trio, one of the reasons is that I was looking for a drummer, and I found this video of Wayne Shorter's band when it was Tom, Gary Willis, and Mitch Foreman. Really great band, and they're playing and they're burning, and things are thinning out, and eventually Gary and Tom stopped playing because Mitch had this great thing. He's an unparalleled piano player, and he had this great thing going with Wayne. And I just loved the fact that Gary and Tom were listening from so great that it's like, gee, this would be better without me in it. And I asked him later, like, did you guys do that every night? And he goes, no, that was just that one night. Like,
Yeah.
they had it. And so I think that thing of being relaxed and kind of relaxing into it and not feeling like you're responsible for generating the time or the propulsion
Yeah.
is kind of one of the big things about it.
I think that kind of restraint also takes experience to know that you don't need to play every single note that you know. You don't need
And
to
the better the caliber of musician you play with, the more you enjoy just sitting there and like, it's like lay out and listen to those guys,
maybe add a little flavor, but don't try to be the whole meal.
Yeah, and change the texture. That's
Yeah.
one thing that Chris Mingdoki's band is really good at, is everybody in there thinks like a producer, and we would all rather be grooving with the rhythm section than taking the solo. And we kind of had this epiphany on the last tour. It's like, gee, nobody wants to blow because everybody wants to be kind of doing the texture. Have you ever played with Hadrian Farode?
No, don't know who that is.
Hadrian is an unbelievable bass player from France. He played
Huh.
with John McLaughlin for a while.
Oh, okay.
He's like, first call guy from LA, very sweet dude, but he doesn't read, and yet he has this seemingly a photographic memory because he shows up at the gig and all the rest of us are squinting at our charts and whatever, and Hadrian, like, I think he listened to it in the car on the way down, and even the most difficult stuff, he just plays it, and it's no thing. I can show him like a really difficult syncopated thing once or twice, and he's got it.
Wow.
Yeah, everybody does it a different way.
Well, it's a very interesting topic, and I know that people that are listening are enjoying it, and I am too, to hear two great musicians talk about something that's so complex and innovative too. We've got some people that would like to say hello, and they're telling us a little bit about where they're from. Is that okay with you guys?
Yes.
Yeah,
Sure.
pick up the conversation after that.
Mhm.
We've got Jason from Montreal, Quebec.
Yes, Jason is one of my students. We've been doing a lot of Skype lessons lately. He's a fantastic harmonica player and a really good keyboard player as well.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. And then, is this Babak?
Yes, a wonderful harmonica player from Iran. That's the beauty of artist works. Is like, we spread all around the world to some places that you wouldn't think would have so much freedom in the internet. And yet Iran apparently does. Yeah.
It's very great.
Thank you, Babak.
Isn't that nice? Very nice. And then here's a hello from Jeffrey Weitzel.
No, it's actually my student Hinoki from Japan.
Oh, sorry.
And he's like a young guy. I think he might be like 10 or 12. I hope I'm not underaging you, Hinoki, but he's one of my best students from lesson to lesson, from video exchange to video exchange. I hear everything coming into place.
That's great.
So yeah, it's a pleasure to do video exchanges with him. He's got the right idea of how to use them.
That's great. And then we've got Amy saying hello. I don't know if
Okay.
you know her, Howard.
Not sure.
Yeah. And then Eric has taken a lesson from you, Howard, in the back room of the Zephyr Club.
Oh, wow. The Zephyr Club. Wow. Oh, yeah.
Maybe we need a little more information there.
I just remember it was like a wild gig with the Flecktones in Salt Lake City. I mean, that's I don't have very clear memory other than it was on a corner. I have a
There's
little
not
bit-
enough Zephyr clubs in the world.
we need a little more information there, Howard. Just kidding. Dan Cook just says hello from Michigan, and that's really nice. And he has a little comment here. Thank you, Dan, for that. He likes taking harmonica lessons at Artist Works and appreciate that.
All right.
And then here is Kenny Poor, and I don't know Kenny, but and then Jerry is here from Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. I guess that is.
Yes, it is.
I think you know this person.
Oh,
Otavio.
my goodness. Wonderful harmonica player from Brazil. Incredible diatonic harmonica player. And I remember my first trip to Brazil, I think, is when he took me to visit Mauricio Einhorn, who's a very famous chromatic player from Brazil. in his
Oh.
apartment in Copacabana, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. Well, I just wanted to make sure that we said hello to some of these folks who took a moment to tell us where they are from. So now I'm just wondering, should we do a little bit of music maybe? Do you guys want to figure out a little musical bit here?
Okay, well, we're going to try something
Uh-oh, uh-oh.
that's it's a little weird across
Okay.
the internet because there's a lag, there's a latency between Howard's
Oh.
playing and my playing.
Okay.
But we tried it earlier today and it worked pretty good, pretty well. We're going to play Naima and we're going to do it. We can't really do a groove thing of any kind because even the tiniest little delay would throw that off and it wouldn't sound right. And there's quite a substantial delay. It's like a quarter of a second, I think, something like that. But if we play it rubato and kind of floating, we were able to get like a pretty cool thing on it today. So I think we're going to play that.
Okay, well, here we go, folks. We're very aware of the latency. We're trying to do something superhuman here. And actually, it's kind of worked before. But these two musicians, if anybody can do it, they can do it. So please enjoy some musical moments here with Howard and George.
Thank you.
Well,
That sounded good on my end.
Oh, beautiful, George, man.
to quote some Gary Meek, who's listening, he said, "Hey, that's working pretty damn good." And I have to agree. I think that went really well. And it sounded beautiful. Also.
Well, and if Gary Meek is saying it sounds good,
Yeah.
Gary is a pretty scary musician. He's a
Is he?
master saxophonist and a master keyboard player.
Well, there he is.
Yeah.
So should I explain a little about the harmonica that I'm playing? And for
I
I
those
would
who-
love that because I'm very curious how you get, a chromatic thing out of a diatonic harmonica.
There's a
Well-
couple questions about it too, Howard, and so I think it's a good time to briefly explain to folks, what are you doing over there?
What is he doing? Well,
What is he doing?
one of the things I'm doing is I'm visualizing a piano keyboard in my head.
Okay.
And I would say the mind over matter part of what I do is, especially in the beginning when I started doing this, is probably the most important component. So this instrument, I was playing an A flat harmonica there because the tune is in A flat. I could have played it on any one of a number of different ones, but I think it fit best on the A flat. So the first harmonica that I bought was in the key of G, and after I figured out how to bend notes, because the way this instrument works, the Germans invented it to play folk music, and to play it in the key that's written on the harmonica. So if you blow straight across, you get the major arpeggio, 3 octaves. And if you draw, you have some of the notes that are left over. And in the bottom, they put in 2, 5, and 7. So you could have the 1 and the 5 chord. And in the middle, they put 2, 4, 6, and 7, which on a G harp is an A minor 6 chord. So by a combination of blowing and drawing in the middle, you get a major scale. At the 7th hole, everything kind of turns upside down. Those are the only notes on the instrument. But when the instrument came over to America, the blues musicians discovered that if you play it, instead of the key that's written on it, if you play it based on the inhale, you immediately get this mixolydian harmony. That's that 7th chord that's built in to like a built-in blues vamp if you play the G harp in D7 in D. But the magic ingredient is the bending of the notes, which was unintentional byproduct of the design. So you can bend the higher pitched note on a hole down to just above the pitch of the lower pitched hole. And it's all asymmetrical, so the bends are all different sizes. So you can see there's a lot of chromatic pitches in there if you can visualize something like the piano keyboard to quantify what you're doing with the tongue position in the inside of your mouth. But then there's notes that are missing. There's 3 notes missing in the middle octave, and on the top, there's 2 notes missing up there too. So being a piano player, if you go to a room in a practice building at college and there's broken notes on the piano, you go out of that room and find a room with a piano that has all 88 keys working.
Yeah, you do.
And so to me, this was like a piano with broken keys. I thought, how is this possible that this instrument doesn't have all the notes on it? I'm 18 years old. What did I know? And I've been playing piano since I was 8. And I was writing jazz tunes, and I always improvised from the age of 8. So I had a very natural musical affinity to, music. And this was the first other instrument I tried playing. So it was very exciting to be able to bend notes and play blues. That's why I picked it up in the first place. But then once I started wanting to play more than just blues, I discovered that even for blues, if I wanted to play that same lick here, I couldn't get the flat 7th
Yeah, it's not
unless
there.
I went down there and bent it. So this was amazingly frustrating. so I'm sitting around one day, and I realized that I'm doing the blow bends on top and the draw bends on bottom. And I thought, well, what if I try to do a blow bend on the bottom? Maybe I can get something to happen. So, for example, if you try to bend the sixth hole blow down, that's the draw. The blow is lower, it can't bend anywhere. It gets weaker. But I kept trying, and suddenly the F popped out one day. Not that cleanly in 1969, but it was, I understood what it was and worked on it to separate it more. So it turns out every place on this instrument where there's a missing note, by using this other technique, you can get these missing notes. So now I could have a full chromatic scale. And it was just up to me to see what I could do with it. And so with the vision of the keyboard in my mind, whoops. All that stuff of course, the more I learned on piano, then the more I could apply the piano knowledge to the harmonica. But I fell in love with the sound of the instrument because it's so incredibly innately soulful. There's no other instrument that'll give you there's just something about that. It just makes my heart melt even when I play,
Well,
So-
oh, sorry.
No,
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
Howard.
No, that's
No,
enough
I
yapping for
just
me.
wanted everybody listening to know that certainly Howard teaches how to play the harmonica. This is a diatonic harmonica. He's not playing a chromatic harmonica. And he does teach how to do that at Artist Works. And
Yes, I do.
people of all skill levels learn from him. He teaches as masterfully as he plays. And so if you even want to add a little bit of this style to your playing, he does teach that. You've also recently, Howard, written a book. You've got some things happening here. Tell us a little bit about what's happening musically with you.
Well, during this time where our only interaction with other musicians is occurring online or, through people sending each other tracks, I'm doing some of that. As a matter of fact, I just recorded 2 tracks with Stephen Jay, who's a very interesting bass player and composer. Lives kind of close to where George is, I believe. More like around
Down in
Ventura
LA?
or Camarillo, someplace like that. He plays with Weird Al. He's in that band. A very wild bunch of musicians. And but aside from that, I just recorded, without realizing I was doing it, a solo piano CD of
Wow.
all free improvisations that originally were supposed to be accompaniments to my wife's reading an audiobook. And the subject matter of the audiobook was like an intellectual, cultural, musical history of Europe from ancient Greece to World War I.
Oh my gosh.
So she would tell me,
This is what your wife is reading?
yeah, yes.
Okay.
She was recording all the words, and then she said, "Yeah, well, this one, 17th century England." I went, "Okay, I think I can, improvise some of that stuff." And some of it was playing like Elizabethan music, what is it? Things like that. From the Fitzwilliam Virginal book, believe it or not, I know a lot of this Renaissance
Wow.
music.
So this
And
is a new book then, or this is a new CD, sorry.
Yes, it's called. When I went back and started listening to the things that I had played, some of them I realized stood on their own as pieces of music, and I was playing in a way that was not extroverted and not trying to project my personality, so much as just being faithful to an idea that she told me that she needed for the read. And so it sort of goes along with an introspective feeling and the feeling that a lot of us have right now, being confined to our places of residence.
Yeah.
And so I did this over the span of about a month when she was doing her reads, and I'd play a whole bunch, and then she would drop them into the narration and say, "I need some
Oh my
more,"
gosh.
you know.
That's a great
And
idea. So she's reading the book.
yes,
That's
she,
out loud. Yeah, I thought you meant she was like reading the book.
oh
She's
no,
not.
no, it's
She's
for
reading.
a website that yeah.
Got it.
Yeah,
Got it. I missed
it's
that.
yeah.
Sorry.
So it was a very interesting collaboration, which I didn't realize was going to have the result that it had.
Wow.
And so she's designing the cover for the CD, and it's all solo piano. There's one piece where I overdub some mandolin because she asked me to, and another one where I'm playing some hand frame drums, which I learned how to do a little from Glenn Velez, and another one where I did a duet with myself on doumbek, Middle Eastern drum, and bamboo flute.
Oh wow.
and
But
I just-
no harmonica.
No harmonica at all. And I was thinking about overdubbing harmonica, and it's just my harmonica playing is so extroverted. It's
Yeah.
like it's hard to lay in the weeds for me on harmonica. And the piano, it had a very particular flavor, a lot of this music, and it was enough. And instead of just getting lost in the world of like add some percussion here, add some harmonica there, put some flute there, I just think it stands on its own.
Yeah. Well, that's again, it's about that musical restraint, knowing that you don't need to play absolutely every single note. You don't need to play every instrument you play either, and you play
That's
a lot
right.
of them.
I do.
So, George, you're up to some interesting stuff, some interesting arrangements that you're doing with the LA Phil and, gosh, Residente, the rapper. What's going on in the world of George Whitty?
Well, the arrangements, I've now done, I think, 7 of these for Herbie Hancock and the Los Angeles Philharmonic. And that started out, I was working with Herbie in kind of mostly a technical capacity. I was programming a bunch of things for his live rig and so forth. And Herbie starts late. Like, I think he really comes alive creatively the later it gets. And it was like midnight one night, and out of nowhere he says, I want to hear some stuff that you've done that's not jazz. And I said, well, I've got this website with 60 or 70 film and TV cues that I did on it. So we got on there and started listening. And Herbie listened to basically kind of every one. And then he says, I've got this interesting gig for you. Wayne Shorter and I did these duo concerts around the world. This was like 15, 20 years ago now. And we always wanted to get them kind of orchestrated and fleshed out. And, when those two guys play together, I don't think there's ever been a telepathy like this. And, so he plays me one of these things, and I'm sitting there, my mind is boggled. It's like 15 minutes long. And only about 8 minutes into it did I figure out that it was Wayne's tune, Footprints. And that was only because somebody played a little fragment of the melody. Wow. But the stuff that they came up with, it's amazing. And I remember asking him at the time, did you guys used to do this at Soundcheck with Miles? And I loved his answer. He said, oh, we could never have done this back then. And they were pretty darn good back then. So I did those, and we played them with a few orchestras, and then I forget which was the first one, but he needed some more orchestra stuff to play with the LA Philharmonic. One of the gigs was at the 100th anniversary celebration at the Hollywood Bowl, and I had some ideas, and he had some ideas of what tunes of his he wanted done. And he just kind of gives me the tune, and they tell me how long they need it to be, and I just go nuts. And then I bring it to Herbie and we refine it, and then we get it played, by possibly one of the world's best orchestra, and it's always a thrill. It's a little bit nerve-wracking, you get in there and everything's copied and it's too late to make any changes, and you're going to hear it for the first time. And I've learned some things about what works best. Those guys can play anything. There's a lot of kind of legend out there that orchestras can't groove it, but those guys can groove it. You know, it helps when you have Vinnie Colaiuta playing drums too, and James Genus. So that, you know, the most recent ones we did were for a series of concerts that the Phil was doing called Power to the People. So one of the tunes was something Herbie had actually written in 1969 or 70 for Angela Davis, who at the time was very much in the news.
Sure.
And was like taking no crap from anybody on, you know, issues of race and so forth in the day. And it was an ostinato piece, and it was basically just 2 bars of information. So it's in 15. And they needed it to be 12 and a half minutes long, so I took that line and I wanted to make sure that that never stopped. So first it shows up in the basses, and then it shows up, and then it's a solo piccolo line, and then the whole band is playing it and stuff. Great fun. They rocked it. It was unbelievable. There was another piece that Herbie wrote back then called I Have a Dream that was dedicated to Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
And we did a nice arrangement of that. And then that kind of led them, the Residente, who's a great artist from Puerto Rico. He's a rapper, but he's like a very socially aware, you know, all of his stuff has a point to it. And it was really interesting for me to read the lyrics. They're all in Spanish, but even the translation is very poetic. So he needed to get some arrangements done for that, and they called me to do as many as I could, and I was kind of boxed in with other things, so I did 4 of those, and that was a thrill. You know, he is not your typical orchestral presence, but boy, it worked beautifully. You know, so did those. It was interesting. You know, he has a very good band, and a lot of what was in there was long guitar solos. And I didn't want to transcribe those or anything like that, so I just tried to capture the spirit of it, but I was able to write a lot of just really original orchestral music for that project. And it was great. The house was just rocking that night when he played. And yeah, it's so fun to hear your stuff played by guys at that level, Gustavo Dudamel and those musicians.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I've been working on is a CD for Eric Marienthal and Randy Brecker.
Who's that? Who's Eric Marienthal?
Eric Marienthal,
Some guy.
does he play sousaphone?
Trombone.
I think we all know who Eric Marienthal is.
Yes,
and
of course.
you know, I had been doing a little bit of work with Eric, and he really wanted to make something kind of in the vein of these Brecker Brothers records that I had produced in the 90s and the Randy stuff that I had done in the 2000s. And it's for a really cool label in New York called Shawnee. They wanted to make sure that it would get played on the radio, so it was a little bit of a balancing act between, you know, the raw funky side and the catchy radio friendly side. But everybody's happy with it. We came up with a bunch of funky music for it. Those guys are the best people to work for. You know, I've been working for Randy since 1992 now. And it was, you know, one of these projects that just every aspect of it was a joy.
Yeah. Well, what talented musicians, and you guys both work with, you know, the cream of the crop. And
yeah, we got Dave Weckl to play on it. We got John Patitucci to play on it. Those are old cohorts of both Eric and Randy.
Yep.
And that comes out probably in August. It's called Double Dealin'.
Double dealing. Okay, well, we're going to watch out for all of these things. You guys are busy, and I'm happy that in the middle of a pandemic, you're still making great music for the rest of us. And we have so much music to look forward to when we finally get out of the shackles of staying at home. I can't wait. I wondered, since we're coming close to the hour, could you guys just play something for us? Someone asked if you could play a Beatles medley. I don't know if that's appropriate or not, but I'd love to hear both of you play again, if we could maybe figure out what that might be.
A Beatles medley. I mean, of course, they never wrote a bad tune, so I could try starting something. I don't know.
I
which
hear
one?
gears turning.
I have a version of Michelle
George?
that I do solo.
Go.
And
This is unrehearsed. And so, George, are you going to join in? Are we going to?
I don't think so. It's just
No.
I can't really join in because of the latency, but I'll play something after that.
Okay, that sounds great. Okay,
What we
Howard.
really need is to get my son in here because he can play all of Sergeant Pepper and all of Abbey Road.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, on piano and a lot of it on guitar as well.
Huh.
So
Wow, that'd be awesome.
yeah.
Well, let's hear Howard play Michelle, and then we'll hear George on something
Cool.
musical as well.
Or maybe I'll play Girl. I'm trying to remember. I used to do a medley of Michelle and Girl. This has been a long time.
Thank you, Howard. That was fabulous. Thank you so very much. Very enjoyable. Yes.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Applause from Twin Peaks.
Thank you.
So, George, what would you like to play for us?
I think I'm going to play a little bit of Yesterday.
Oh, I love it. Okay, very good. Wow. That was absolutely, absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, both of you, for sharing your music. I mean, this is good for everybody else, but it's also very good for me.
Good.
So thank you. I find music deeply therapeutic and healing and soothing, and I'm very happy to have spent the last hour with both of you two great musicians. I want to thank everybody else who has joined us from afar and welcome you back or invite you back tomorrow at noon. We are going to be doing a live dispatch from home with Martin Taylor, who will be in Scotland, and also Mike Marshall, who will be in Germany. So feel free to join us tomorrow at noon right here at facebook.com/artistworks, where we'll be joined by two other just outstanding master musicians, just like these two here with Howard Levy and George Whitty. Thank you both for joining us.
Yeah,
My pleasure.
total pleasure. And George, is so happy to actually finally meet you and to sort of play together too, which was it was actually beautiful. It felt great to play
Yeah,
together.
and you know, I could talk to you for another 4 hours.
Likewise, man. The
Yeah.
stories about writing for Herbie and Wayne. I heard that duo. I heard one of those
Oh
concerts.
man, you caught a good one.
Yeah, it was like, this cosmic excursion on whatever they were playing, Dolphin Dance for a half an hour or something like this, It was,
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, there's another live stream broadcast right there for you guys to talk about the great collaborations that you've had with other musical giants. It is time, though, for you guys to get together and make some great music together, and I hope that you'll do that at Artist Works in front of our cameras, and let's just record it so we
all
have it.
right.
That
So
would be great.
I would love to. I'll have to hitchhike out there, I guess.
Excellent.
I ain't flying, that's for sure.
No, but we'll do it at a time when it's okay for everybody to fly.
Yeah.
Thank you again, everyone, for
Okay.
joining us. Howard and George, I really appreciate your music. I value you as human beings and appreciate the fact that you're on our roster, but also in my life. I'm thankful for that and hope that you both stay well and safe and covered up for a while. But thank you for letting your music out. It was very important. So we will all see you again soon.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Take
All right.
care.
Ciao
Everybody
for now.
stay safe out there.
Yeah. The big
Bye
thing.
now.
Be careful.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.